Today we're taking a look at the deliberate construction of Vladimir Putin's Russia. You see, this isn't a story of random events. Not at all. It's a story of architecture, a system that was designed piece by piece over decades. So let's dive into the blueprint. Now, to really understand this architecture, I think it's best to start with the finished product. So we're going to jump forward in time a bit to January 2026 to see the Russia that has actually been built.
At the very heart of this new reality is one single, pretty staggering number, 9%. That's the estimated share of Russia's entire GDP that's now being consumed by its war effort. And let's be clear, this isn't just a big military budget. We're talking about a fundamental re-engineering of the whole economy.
What this really means is that Russia has become a state that is permanently geared for conflict. But it's not doing this alone. It's now held up by a new axis of global partners, all of whom are pretty dedicated to challenging the current world order.
Okay, so that's the end result. Which brings us to the big question. How did this happen? What were the actual steps, the stages of construction that turned the chaotic Russia of the 1990s into the fortress we see today? Let's rewind the clock and trace the plans.
You know, the foundation of this entire structure wasn't laid during Putin's presidency. Nope, you have to go back way further, to his days as a KGB spy. This is where his core worldview, his methods, this is where it was all forged. And while his whole career in intelligence is obviously a big deal, his time in Dresden, East Germany from 85 to 90, well, that was the most critical, the most formative phase. It's there that he witnessed something that would shape his entire political future.
So picture this, it's 1989. Protesters are surrounding his KGB headquarters in Dresden, and he calls Moscow for backup, and he gets nothing but silence. That experience, watching a state just crumble from the inside, it created this profound political trauma, a deep-seated fear of paralysis, and an absolute obsession with creating a strong, unchallengeable vertical of power, a system where every order flows directly from the top.
So after he gets back from Germany, Putin gets into the St. Petersburg city government in the 1990s. In this period, well, it became a kind of laboratory, a place where the raw materials for his future state, a really volatile mix of politics, organized crime, and big money, were all fused together.
Let's look at how state power was being used here. Take the Salyut Commission case. Over $100 million in raw materials were shipped out of the country in exchange for food that just never showed up. And Putin's signature was right there on the licenses. Or look at the SPAG affair, where a company he advised was investigated for laundering money for organized crime. The really crucial point here is that the line between the state and criminality was being deliberately erased.
And this whole system operated on one key principle, and it's captured by the Russian word krysha. Literally, it means roof. But what it's really about is protection. It's the idea that the most valuable service the state can provide isn't law and order, but protection for illegal businesses, a state-sponsored protection racket. And that became the economic engine of the whole system.
All right, so the foundation was laid. The materials were all mixed, but Putin's system needed a chance to go national, and that opportunity came in the form of a terrifying national crisis, which basically provided the scaffolding to build the system on a massive, countrywide scale.
In 1999, a string of apartment bombings killed over 300 people. The official story, right away, blamed Chechen separatists. But a very controversial counter-narrative quickly emerged. It pointed to a really bizarre incident in a city called Ryazan, where FSB agents were actually caught planting a similar-looking device. They later claimed it was just a training exercise.
Now, whatever you believe about what caused the bombings, the political result was undeniable. Putin, who at the time was a pretty unknown prime minister, he responded with this famous vow to waste the terrorists, and his approval rating just exploded from single digits to over 50%, catapulting him straight towards the presidency.
So once he's in power, the next phase begins. This is all about systematically consolidating control at home, while at the same time pivoting from cooperation to confrontation abroad. This was the building of Fortress Russia.
And the playbook was really straightforward. First, you centralize power by basically taking away the power of regional governors. Second, you seize control of the national story by taking over independent TV channels. And third, you send a very clear message to the powerful oligarchs by arresting the richest man in Russia, Mikhail Khodorkovsky. The message couldn't be clearer. Your money will not protect you from the Kremlin.
At the same time, on the world stage, the shift was just as dramatic. Before 2007, Russia's strategy was all about integration with the West, but then there was this clear turning point, and the strategy completely flipped to one of open confrontation.
And that turning point has a date, the 2007 Munich Security Conference. With this one quote, Putin publicly drew a line in the sand. He declared Russia's opposition to the post-Cold War order, framing NATO expansion as a direct provocation. The era of trying to cooperate, officially over.
And this, well, this brings us full circle. You take all the previous pieces, the KGB mindset, the kleptocratic model, the defiant foreign policy, and they all culminate in the final feature of this architecture: permanent war. Now, to make sure this whole system was permanent, the actual rules of the game had to be rewritten, and that's exactly what the 2020 constitutional changes did. They reset presidential terms, allowing Putin to rule until 2036, they placed Russian law above international law, and they cemented a conservative, nationalist ideology right into the state's foundation. The 2022 invasion really solidified this final form. Cut off from the West, Russia went out and forged what's been called the axis of upheaval. It's a very pragmatic coalition, right? North Korea gives them millions of artillery shells and even troops. Iran provides drones and expertise in getting around sanctions. And China offers a vital economic lifeline to keep the whole thing afloat.
So there you have it. The architecture is complete. A fortress built on the paranoia of a security state, funded by kleptocracy, and justified by never-ending conflict. But this all raises one final, absolutely crucial question. With immense casualties, a draining economy, and a growing dependency on its partners, is this fortress actually built to last?